Hi guys, this is Ashish from Edureka and welcome to this fifth video of Edureka's free Angular course for beginner. In this video, I'm going to talk about Angular directives. So without doing any further delay, let's go ahead and understand what is a directive. As you know, Angular templates are dynamic, that is, they change with user interaction. So whenever they are rendered on your browser, all those rules or instructions as per which your DOM elements got changed or your DOM tree gets changed is given by directives. So in a very simple terms, you can say that directive allows you to manipulate your DOM. So now let's go ahead and understand what are the different types of directive that is provided by Angular. Now the first one in our list is called as component. Component is essentially a directive with a template. So we have a view associated with our component. As we have seen in our third video where we have learned about components in detail, we learned over there that a component comprises of two aspects. One is your business logic, that is the TypeScript class where you write all those logic. And the second one is the visual part of your component that a user sees. So whenever a component is being rendered on your browser, all those elements that is there inside your template is being added into your DOM tree. Now the second one is called as structural directives. As the name suggests, structural directives allows you to change the structure of your DOM or change the DOM layout by adding or removing or replacing a certain DOM element with some other one. So that's how your structural directives work. The last one is called as attributes directive that allows you to change the appearance or behavior of an element in your DOM. For example, you can go ahead and change the background color, the font size, the font color, all those things can be done using attribute directive. So let's go ahead and understand each of these two directives one by one. So we'll start with structural directive. So we'll look at some of the built-in structural directive provided by Angular that is most commonly used. So the first one that we're going to talk about today is called as ngFor. It is basically a repeater directive that iterates over a collection of data. So let's go ahead and understand what does it mean through code. For that, I'll open my Atom ID and I'll open my terminal. Let me go inside my project and I'm going to generate a component where I'll be showing all the demo. Directive example. Now, as you can see that our component has been created. This is our component. Now let's go ahead and nest our directive example component inside our app component. We'll go ahead and do that quickly. So I'll go to my HTML app component template and then I'm going to write app-directive-example. All right, well, let's go ahead and render our application. ngserve. Now if I go to my browser and open localhost 4200, you can see that directive example component is being rendered over here inside our app component basically. Now, as said earlier, that ngFor directive is a repeater directive that iterates over a collection of data. So as to demonstrate how ngFor works, let's go ahead and create that collection of data. So in our case, we're going to go ahead and create a string array. So let me create a string array called as DC heroes, which will be an array of string containing all those DC Comics heroes. So I'll start with Batman, then I'll go ahead with Superman, then Wonder Woman, then at last I'm going to go ahead with Flash. Now what I want is I want to display each hero over here as a list. So I'm going to go ahead inside my template. I'm going to delete all this and then I'm going to create a def tag. All right. And here I'm going to use my ngFor directive. So as the syntax go, as you can see, it is stating that let item of list, where item is nothing but a looping variable. So for each hero that is there inside our list, this item reference variable will store that particular hero of the list that we are iterating, and this will be the name of the list that we have inside our component. So I'll go ahead with DC heroes here, and this looping variable, you can name it anything. I can go ahead with item as well, but let's go ahead with hero so as to make it more readable. Now what I'll do, I'll use interpolation. All right. Now, as you can see, we have a list of heroes, all the heroes that were there in our array. Now let's have a closer look what is happening over here. So basically what is happening here is your ngFor, which is a repeater directive, it is repeating this element for each hero that is there in our list. So basically, whenever you put your ngFor directive inside any element, that element will be repeated based on the number of items that is there on list on which ngFor is operating. Now, apart from that, you can go ahead and do various things, like you can go ahead and say let I equal to index. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to provide index to my heroes, and then I'm going to go inside my component. I'm going to create a variable called as index, a property called as index, which will be of type number, and I'll initialize it with 0. Now I can evaluate this expression on the go using interpolation as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use interpolation, and I'm going to say I plus 1. So as discussed in our previous video where I told you that whenever you put an expression inside an interpolation, it will evaluate that expression, and then finally the result will be displayed on your browser. So if I do that, so in each iteration your I will be incremented, and finally you can have a result something like this. So as simple as that, guys. Now that you have understood ngFor, it is very simple. That's how you have to do. Repeat the syntax. Go ahead with ngFor equal to let the looping variable of the iterable that you are having. You can have any kind of iterable, array of object, a list, whatever you want, and then you interpolate that, or you do whatever you want to do with that particular list. If you notice, we are using asterisk symbol over here. That signifies that it is a structural directive. So whenever you are using a structural directive, you'll be using asterisk. So that's it, guys. That was all about ngFor. Let's go ahead to our slide and understand the next directive in our list, which is ngIf. Now, ngIf allows you to add or remove an element from the DOM based on certain condition. The condition can be anything. It can be state of your application. It can be a Boolean property. If it is set to true, then that particular element will exist in our DOM. So let's go ahead and implement this as well. So this time what I want to do is I want to create a button, and whenever I click on this button, I want this list of heroes to be removed from my DOM. And then again, if I click it, I want this list of here to appear in our DOM. So basically I want a toggle type of functionality, wait for removing and adding the list of heroes. So I'm going to name it as toggle heroes. All right. Now I'll go back to my component class and I'll create a property toggle hero flag. It will be of type Boolean, and I'll set it as true initially. Now I want to create a function, toggle hero function. And what I want is whenever I click on that button, as said earlier, I want to toggle my hero list. So whenever I click it once, it will be removed from my DOM. Then if I click it again, it will be appeared on my DOM or inserted in my DOM so that we can see it finally on our browser. So I'm going to go ahead with this dot toggle hero flag, and then I'm going to reverse it each time when you click the button. All right. Now if I go to my template, what I want to do is I want to use event binding to bind my click event with that particular function that I have created just now, toggle heroes, in my component class. So I'm going to go ahead with click, and this is toggle hero. Now the next thing that I want to do over here is I want to add ngIf, because now we have created our button, we have mapped it to a function. Now based on that toggle hero flag, our ngIf will work. So I'll go ahead and create a one more def tag over here, and then I'll put this inside my def tag, and here I'm going to use ngIf. All right, it wants an expression, so I'm going to go ahead with my toggle hero flag. So initially it is set to true, so you can see the list over here. As you can see, now when I click on this button, it gets removed from our DOM. Now you would be thinking, why not we can go ahead and use hidden attribute so that we can hide this particular element whenever you want. So for now, this is a very simple example where we are just displaying a list of a superhero which is very minimal in nature, but actually you can go ahead and use this ngIf for removing some component from being rendered. And that component, if that component is a computation intensive component, then it will affect your performance in a great manner. So that's why removing an element from your DOM is very important. So now that we have understood this, let's move ahead and understand what is ngSwitch. ngSwitch, as the name goes, it is pretty much similar to any switch function or switch cases that you have in other programming languages. So basically, what if you want to display one element and you have multiple elements, and out of that you want to display just one element based on certain scenarios. So for that you want to go ahead with ngSwitch. So let's go ahead and implement this as well. So I'm going to go ahead with ngSwitch. All right. So as the syntax over here, you can see that we have a ngSwitch that works on some condition expression. If that condition is satisfied for any of the switch case, that case or whatever logic that we have put or whatever thing that we want to display over in that switch case will be displayed in our browser. All right. So basically we have 4 heroes. So we want 4 switch cases. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it 4 times. In default cases, I want to show that none of the heroes have been selected. All right. Now I'm going to put the expression that I want. Now I'm going to put real name of the heroes. So first one is Batman. So I'm going to go ahead with Bruce Wayne. Then the second one is Superman. So I'm going to go ahead with Clark Kent. Then we have Wonder Woman. So we have Princess Diana over here. Then at last we have Barry Allen for Flash. All right. So we have these 4 real names of the hero corresponding to the hero that we have in our array. Now let's go ahead and create our condition expression that will be evaluated. So what I want is basically whenever I click on one of the def tag over here, so I want to bind it with some click function. Whenever I click it, I want to capture that hero, and that hero will finally be put inside my condition expression in my switch case, and that will be evaluated for all these switch cases. So I'm going to go ahead with click event over here. So I'm going to go ahead with click event. Then I'm going to go ahead and bind it with some function that I'll be creating. So basically what I want to capture the hero that I'll be clicking on, right? So basically I'll be sending that hero. So let's say select hero. Let's say the name of our function that we'll be creating is select hero. And we're going to pass the hero that we'll be clicking on. All right. Now let's go inside our component class. Now let's create that function select hero that accepts a hero. All right. And I'm going to create a property here as well. The property will be selected hero of type string. And we'll say this dot selected hero equals to hero. That's it. Now let's go ahead and do one more thing. Let's console it out and let's see whether it is working or not. So if I click on this, we are having a problem. It's saying select hero is not a function. All right, so we did a mistake over here. I guess now it should work. And as you can see, we have the console being happening over here. Superman, Woman, Flash, everything we are getting over here. So it's working fine. Now what I want to do, as you can see that we are seeing all those 4 real names being displayed over here because we haven't created our switch expression, the condition on which your switch cases will be evaluated. So I'm going to go ahead and put this condition over there. So our condition will be selected hero. Now based on this selected hero, it will evaluate all those cases that we have. And here we have to put the cases. Whenever the ngSwitch finds a match with the selected hero, it will display that particular real name. Now remember here it's accepting expression and expression over here. It's expecting an expression. But in our case, we're going to go ahead and use hardcode value. So we're going to use single quote inside double quote so as to go ahead with the string value over here. See if we're going to go ahead with Batman. So I'm going to use this Batman, which is a string value. If I would have used something called as or like this, if I'm going to go ahead and use something called as DC heroes, and I'm going to say like this, then it will work. In other cases, if you're going to use ahead with a value, with a string value, then you're going to use single quote inside double quotes. So for that, I'm going to go ahead with Superman, and then again Wonder Woman, and at last we have Flash. All right. So now if I click on any of this, you can see it is working. For last case, it is not working again because we missed that single quote that I told you. So if I do that again, now you can see it's working fine. If we click on any of this hero in the list, we can see his or her real name. So this is all about ngSwitch. So there are two things to remember over here. Whenever you're using an expression, that is the property that you have defined in your component, we'll go ahead with double quotes inside your switch cases. In case if you're using a string value that you want to be evaluated, you're gonna go ahead and use it inside your single quotes so that your switch case can understand that it is a string and therefore evaluate it accordingly. So basically we have understood all these three commonly used structural directives, ngFor, ngIf, ngSwitch, and you would have understood that basically we are playing with the structure of the DOM, how the DOM layout goes, and how we can add, remove, or replace a certain element based on some condition using structural directives. Now, let's go ahead with our next set of directives, which is called as attribute directive. So let's go ahead and see some of the commonly used attribute directive provided by Angular. The first one in our list is ngStyle. So whenever we have multiple inline styles for a particular element and you want to change the style of that particular element dynamically based on certain condition or your state of your component, then you're going to go ahead with ngStyle. So let's go ahead and understand what does it mean actually. So let's say what I want to do is I want to change the style of this real name dynamically based on certain condition. So let's go ahead and do it. So for that, I'm going to create an object called as myStyle. All right. Then I'm going to create a function called as SetStyle. So basically this will be responsible for changing the style. And here I'm going to modify my myStyle, or I'm going to initialize it with some value. Now the values that I want to change over here is can be anything. Let's go ahead with very simple functionalities. So let's go ahead with font weight, right? Or let's set it as bold. Then we have color. Let's go ahead and do one thing. We'll set this color parameter differently, or will have different color each time. So we'll create a function that will generate random colors, and based on which we'll be changing the color of whatever element or whatever text that we want to. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So we'll keep it for later on. I will implement it later on, that function. Let's do one more thing. We're gonna go ahead with font size, and for now let's keep it as 24 pixels. All right. Now we'll set it as this dot random, or we can say generate random color. All right. Now if I go ahead and create this function over here, generate random color. Now let's go ahead and create our function. So for that, I'm going to create one property called as color, which will be of type string. And inside my function, whenever it is called, I'm going to start with hash. Now basically a color hex code starts with a hash, so therefore we have initialized it with hash. Now the remaining digits, basically a color hex code comprises of 6 digits, so remaining 6 digits will be generated randomly based on certain logic that we're going to provide here, and we're going to use some math function over here, something called as math.random. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you know that each digit are a hexadecimal digit, so it will be of 1 to 9, or it will be from A to F. So all those 16 possibilities are there. So we're going to go ahead and create an array called as letters. And then we're going to create an array where we're going to put all those 16 digits, that is 0, then 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, then 8, then we have got 9, then we have got A, then we have got B, C, D, then we have got E, at last we have got F. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead with a loop variable so as to generate each digit of that hex code. Let me show you something. That hex code in generally comprises of hashtag FFFFFF. So these are the 6 digits. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take each digit randomly from my array, and I'm going to make my hex code or the color code that I'm going to return. So I'm going to go ahead with my for loop. There I'm going to go ahead with I equals to 0. Then since we have 6 digit, I'm gonna iterate till 6. I'm gonna increment my I. Alright, now let's go ahead with this dot color plus equals to, because I want to append whatever new digit I'm gonna generate, and then I'm gonna go ahead with letters. Now I'm gonna choose the random indexes. So for that I'm gonna use math function, that is random, I guess. This is the random function. Now this random function in generally generates a random digit between 0 to 1. So I'm gonna go ahead and multiply it by 16, and then basically we will be having a float number. So I'm gonna convert it into integer so as to refer to a particular index in our array. So I'm gonna use something called as math.floor, and I'm gonna surround our math.random into 16 functionality. All right, so this is what I'm gonna do. Now let's console this color as well. So that color will be your this dot color. All right, now let's go ahead and return this color as well. Now each time when I'm changing my style using this, my SetStyle function, it will be calling this generate random color function, and finally this new color or random color will be generated each time and will be applied to my color attribute of whatever element, whatever text that I will be operating on. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a button again. Now whenever I click on this button, so now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a button. All right, and I'll say change style, or let's keep it down, and I'm gonna bind my set style method over here. So let's go ahead with our click event and set it as set style. All right, now let's bind and go ahead and use ngStyle over here. So we're gonna use ngStyle. Now as you can see, we are having style over here and then some expression. Instead of that, we're gonna go ahead with our my style object that we have created just now. So we're gonna go ahead with my style. So now everything is fine over here. So now let's go ahead and see whether it is working or not. So as you can see, the real name is being displayed. Now once I clicked on change style, we can see over there that a random color is being generated and is being applied dynamically on this text. Now one of the interesting things that you can go ahead and do with ngStyle is you can choose one of the inline style among multiple styles. So what I'm trying to say over here is what we can do is we can go ahead inside our function and we're gonna go ahead and create some condition. Let's go ahead style toggle flag. Okay, let's make it as boolean and then set it as true initially. All right, then what I want to do is based on this style toggle flag, I want to switch between different styles of, that is if I want to have a different font weight. For example, what I want is I want to go ahead with this style toggle flag. All right, and then I'm going to put this, and then I want bold, and if it is set to true, I want to have it as bold. And when it is set to false, then in that case I'm going to go ahead with a normal. All right, similarly I'm going to go ahead and use this over here as well, and I'm going to switch between 24 pixels and 15 pixels. All right, so now if I go ahead and if I do this, as you can see, we are saving the same value over here because we are not toggling the style toggle flag. So let's go ahead and do that each time we are clicking on that button. So again, we're gonna go ahead with toggle style toggle flag, and we want it to be style toggle flag. We want it to be reversed each time we are clicking on button. So now as you can see, we are having different font size over here, and apart from that, the text is being bold and then being displayed as normal, right? So this is how you go ahead with your ngStyle. Now ngClass allows you to add or remove CSS classes that do dynamically. That is why they are very much important. So whenever you want to play with style that do dynamically, you're gonna go ahead with ngStyle and go ahead with ngClass. Now let's go ahead and create our CSS class. So I'm gonna go ahead with dot style red, and here what I want is I want background color as, let's say, a black. All right, and then I want the text color as red. Then I'm gonna copy it over here. I'm gonna make it as white, and this time I'm gonna just change this to white. That's it. Now let's go ahead and create one h2 tag. So change CSS class dynamically, and then again I'm gonna add a button over here for changing the style, or I can add the click event in h2 element as well, but let's go ahead and add a button, and let's say it as change CSS class. All right, and then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a property called as current CSS class, which will be of type string, and I'm gonna set it as style red initially. Then I'm gonna create one more function as set CSS class, and here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna change the CSS class to a different one. So I'm gonna go ahead with current class CSS class. I'm gonna set it as style white. Let's go ahead and toggle it as well. So we'll do something as this dot current CSS class equals to style red. Now let's put it inside curly braces, and then we're gonna go ahead with our else block. And here what I want is I want it to be reversed. This dot CSS current class is gonna set at style red again. Let's console this out as well. This dot current CSS class. All right, so that's what I'm trying to say over here. Now let's go ahead in our template, and here we're gonna add click event over here. So let's go ahead with the click event and add it with set CSS class. That function will be called whenever we click it. And now let's bind our h2 element with ngClass. All right, now here I'm gonna put my current CSS class. That's the name of the class, which will be added to this h2 element, and whenever we click on this button, it will be changed dynamically. So let's go ahead and see whether it is working or not. So if I go ahead and click on that, you can see that it's perfectly working. So that's how you can go ahead and change the CSS class or choose among different CSS class dynamically as well. Now the last word we're going to talk about is called as ngModel. Basically what it does, it display a data property, and then whenever a user makes some changes on that data property, it updates it as well. So that data property that has been updated by ngModel will be updated in all those places wherever it is being used. So what I'm trying to say over here is, let's go ahead and let's create a very simple example. Again, we're gonna go ahead with our h2 tag over here, and we'll say change text color using ngModel. All right, now I'm gonna create an input placeholder. So whenever you are putting some value over there, like red and color, whatever color that you are providing, the text color will be changed accordingly. Now, as you know, using two-way data binding, that is your ngModel, you can change that property. And whenever a user is making some change on that data property, the value of that data property, it will be reflected on your DOM as well. So let's go ahead and create that data property. So we'll go ahead and name it as input color, type string, and let's initialize it with red. All right. Now let's bind it. We're gonna use something called as ngModel over here, and then binding, we'll go ahead with our property, that is input color property. And remember, as I told you, we can go, if you have a single inline style that you want to choose with, you can go ahead with the simple style binding as well. So you're gonna go ahead with style, and let's use the property binding over here because we'll be binding this style with our input color data property, and we will be binding color specifically. So I'm gonna go ahead and bind it with input color. All right, now let's go ahead and see whether it works or not. Okay, so we are getting some error, ngModel is not known. This is happening because we need to import a certain model called as forms model in order to use ngModel. So I'm gonna add or import this forms module over here from @angular/forms, and then I'm gonna go ahead in my imports array of @ngModel decorator, and I'm gonna add forms model. All right. Now once I do that, that error will be gone. So now let's go ahead and change this to blue, and it's working. Red, green. So as you can see, the two-way data binding is working over here. So guys, that was all about your built-in directives, built-in structural directive and built-in attribute directives, how to use them. Now let's go ahead and understand how to create a custom directive. That is how to create our own directive from scratch. Let me open my IDE again and let me create a new directive. So let's go to my project folder, sample, and ngg directive, and I'll say app bold in this case. All right, so our directive has been created, which we can see over here. So this is our directive. Now this is the selector tag that we'll be using. So let's go ahead and import the dependencies that we require. So first one that we require is called as element ref. Basically, this will allow you to access the properties or the attributes of the element on which you will be making changes. And the next one that we want is host listener. So host listener allows you to subscribe to any event of a particular DOM element on which we are working on or on which we are operating. Now, there's one important thing to notice over here. So what we'll do, we'll be use something called as dependency injection so as to create an instance of element ref. So whenever you want to create an instance of a certain class, you're gonna go ahead and use something called as dependency injection. So let me show you how to use it. So you're gonna go ahead with element ref, and this will be of type element ref, right? Let's create it a private. Now what I want to do is I'm going to use my @host listener so as to subscribe some event. So I'm going to go ahead with @host listener, and then the event that I want to be subscribed for is mouse enter, and whenever I enter the mouse over that element, that is on mouse enter, I want this function to happen. And then what I want to do is I want to use my element ref again to access the native element, and from there I want to access the style, and from there I want to access the font weight. All right, and I want to make it as bold. As simple as that. So basically what I'll be doing over here is whenever I'm hovering my mouse in this list, I want that certain hero on which my mouse is to be bold. Also what I want to do is I want to change the background color so that it looks like you are selecting it. So let's go ahead and do that as well. So this dot element ref dot native element dot style dot background dot color, background color. I'm gonna set it as, let's go ahead and set it as gray. All right. I guess, okay, I missed a dot over here. Now, whenever I move my mouse out of that particular element, I want everything to be back to normal. So let's go ahead and use this again. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this because again, we'll be needing our host listener. This is a decorator that @host listener, and it allows you to basically, as I said, to subscribe to events of all those DOM elements that host our directive, whatever directive that we are using. Now I'm going to go ahead with mouse sleeve event this time. Mouse sleeve, on mouse sleeve. Alright, and then I'm gonna make it as normal, and I'm gonna make it as initial. Alright, so that's it guys. Now let's go ahead to our list. This is our list where we want to add this, and let's add our app bold. Alright, now as you can see, it is working. Whenever we are hovering our mouse and whenever we are leaving that area, it's getting back to normal, and whenever we are going over there, it's getting highlighted. Alright, now also what we can do, suppose what we want to do is we want to set that color of the background dynamically. For that, what we can do is we can go ahead and use something called as input. Alright, and we have already discussed about it, so I'm going to use @input decorator, and then I'm going to create some property on which I'll be receiving my input. So I'm going to go ahead with property as background color. Okay, let's make this peachy color because we should not use the same name that is being reserved already. So we'll go ahead with string. Alright, now let's set to as this dot pg color. Alright, now let's go back to our template where we want to apply our directive that we have created just now. Now here we have a new input property on which we'll be passing the color that is called as pg color. Alright, and we want to set it as, let's say, blue. Now let's go ahead and see it's working, right? So this is how you can go ahead and create your own custom directive. And remember, the directive that we have created over here is an attribute directive. So we were modifying the property of our attribute of a certain dev element over here. So that's why it's an attribute directive. You can go ahead and create your own structure, custom structure directive as well. For now, I'm going to leave it as an exercise for you. So you're going to go ahead and create some structural directive and kindly share your ideas in the comment section below. Now let's go ahead and understand this fundamental question, why we need directives. Well, the answer to this question is very simple. The first one is it provides you code modularity and manageable. So whenever if you have created a directive and you want to make certain changes to it, you want to change the color or the attributes in a different manner, set to a different value, you just have to go ahead with that directive code and make changes over there, and it will be applied elsewhere wherever it is being used. Directives are reusable. So basically, whenever we have written a directive or whenever you have to implement certain DOM manipulation functionality, you don't have to rewrite those codes everywhere wherever it is required. You just have to put it inside a directive and then provide or apply that directive wherever you want to, instead of writing it again and again. So that's why directives plays a very important part in your Angular ecosystem. So finally, guys, we come to the end of this session, this video, and I guess this was helpful for you. Now in the next video, I'm going to talk about Angular router, where I'm going to show how we can route between or navigate between different components in an Angular application. So thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Till then, have fun.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply to them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to our Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!